Introducing the pound-for-pound best radio show around the world, it's Leave It in the Ring.
But the real fight fans, I'm talking about if you're tuning in and listening to Leave It in the Ring right now, you're a real fight fan, okay? Because this is what hardcore fight fans do. We all want to talk about boxing consistently. It's a 24-hour thing. It's not a sport to us. It's a lifestyle.
Let's get right into it. This Saturday night on July 31st, you got some interesting fights on pay-per-view. Juan Manuel Marquez versus Juan the Baby Bull Diaz, the rematch of their fight of the year. Let's go really quick with the undercard fights. You got Robert the Ghost Guerrero out of Gilroy, California, getting in with the crafty Escepio Joel Casamayor. You know, it's an interesting fight, and it's a needed fight for Robert the Ghost Guerrero in so many ways because, you know, he's one of those guys that have been fighting contenders, but not, you wouldn't really say solid contenders. He was fighting other guys, really honestly, like Jason Litsu, who wasn't really sure whether or not he was going to get beyond being a contender to a champion. Even Jordan is another guy that couldn't really say was a top of the elite guys. Where Casamayor has kind of been there, done that. He's an older veteran, but he's still crafty. He was KO'd by Juan Manuel Marquez for the very first time, but he was competitive through that whole fight with Marquez. So the fight there for Casamayor, you have to say it's a crossroad fight. We don't really know what is left of him. Has he gotten old? His legs are obviously not as mobile as they used to be, and he's and since they're not as mobile anymore, you've seen him kind of more less sit on his punches. With Michael Casitas, he got dropped and he was able to drop Michael Casitas. With Marquez, he was still able to, land some hard shots. So the lefty crafty Cepillo, you got to say still, he carries a lot of pop. I know a lot of people in the past have criticized his power. He's really carried the traditional Cuban amateur style, but he's evolved into a pro style, and the older he's gotten, the more exciting, in my opinion, he has become because he has to sit on his punches and he can't be as slick and as mobile as he used to. But he is still a crafty guy. He knows how to hold. He does put his head in there, and, Robert is prone to get cut. We've seen him get cut numerous times in bouts, So Casamayor has a big plus if he does decide to use that head of his, the dome, and cut Robert the Ghost Guerrero, because then he could work off of his right jab, and he can be able to land big bombs to the cut of Robert the Ghost and get in the hopes of stopping him on a TKO due to a cut. And then we've seen, Jordan stepped in with Robert, where Robert complained he couldn't see. So there's a lot of possibilities in this fight. It's really not, Casamayor being old. This is an old guy being crafty and being intelligent in the ring, and be able to, if he's able to stand his ground to a young, strong, Guerrero, he still has a big ups in pulling it off. And it's not one of those, it's a complete shutout on Casamayor. There's no way in hell he's gonna get beaten up pretty bad, because he does have a possibility with Robert the Ghost Guerrero, where Robert is an amateur. He was a slick boxer, and in the beginning of his pro career, he was a slick boxer. But now you gotta more or less see that he's, same thing like with Casamayor. He is involved into becoming a puncher boxer. But we've seen him box, when he is in danger. But we've also seen that when he's out for blood, he's definitely out for blood. And I think that's what's gonna happen with Casamayor. He's gonna have a game Guerrero, who Guerrero knows right now, look, this is my coming out party, fighting a guy that's been there, done that, and I got to prove to Golden Boy that I have a stance at this division, and there's already been talks of, Khan saying he wants the winner of either one of those guys. So there's a big money fight there for Robert. So there's a lot of weight on him right now. Casamayor, the same thing. There's a lot of weight on him because he still feels there's things to be proven. He's still talking about Marquez. He still wants to fight the best, and he still wants to be recognized as one of the best in the world. Now, who do I got in this fight? I think it's going to be a hug fest, to tell you the truth. I think we're going to have some spurts in it. You're going to have some moments, but I think that Robert's going to, edge it out. I think he's going to edge it out on a really close decision, and we're probably not going to get the questions that we want answered, and we're probably not going to see the last of Casamayor, because, Casa is not going to walk away from a razor-thin loss. He's going to continue his career. Now, let's go with the real crossroad fight with Rocky Juarez versus Jorge Linares. Rocky Juarez lost to Jason Litsu due to a cut. He was outpointed and was hoping to get a rematch, but wasn't able to, get that on paper and wasn't able to persuade Litsu to get back in the ring with them. Now, Jorge Linares gets knocked out in the first round, makes a comeback, and was, semi-successful. I mean, not semi, he was successful, but he wasn't really fighting anybody that's going to test that jaw. Well, Rocky Juarez, you got to admit, the guy does belong in the 15-round era, but the guy packs a punch around the 10th, 11th, and 12th round. When the championship round kicks in, that's when Rocky kicks in. Jorge Linares, really honestly, is the more mobile, more boxer puncher in this match, where Rocky still doesn't seem to know how to gear it up and get into second or third or even fourth gear to get into that emergency mode where he can get his guy out of there, But I like this match, and I'm going to tell you why. Where Jorge Linares, really honestly, still going in with a lot of demons. He's not really for sure at this moment if his jaw is intact. Is he going to be able to take the heavy-handed Rocky Juarez? Rocky Juarez is, Rocky just got to forget about people asking him, hey, what are you going to do to get faster? Are you going to start a quitter? You know what? Just get in there and give those 10 rounds away, and then hope that Linares' feet and tire him out. He ends up stopping at one point between the 10th and the 12th, and he gets clipped and knocks out Jorge Linares, where I could see it happening, So I'm going to pull for Rocky Juarez. I'm going to say he's going to be able to pull it off. I think he's going to be able to finally get a notch underneath this belt that he's been deserving for a while, and you're going to see Jorge Linares just kind of, pummel down a lot faster than we've seen him happen on the first round, but we're going to see him be successful. It's going to be one of those one-sided bouts for the first, 10, 11 rounds, and then you're going to see Rocky just catch him when he gets too comfortable and he gets trying to start to cruise into those later rounds to finish off the decision, and boom, out of nowhere, Rocky's going to come from behind and knock him out. And then that's the end of that. And then you're going to continue seeing Rocky Juarez on pay-per-view fights. So I don't know which one's good or bad. And then let's get into the main event. You got Juan Manuel Marquez, who just came off a loss of pretty boy Floyd Mayweather. And then you got Juan the Baby Bull Diaz, who came off of a loss of Paulie Malignaggi. Juan the Bull, really honestly, like the kid, doesn't have the greatest power, doesn't have the greatest boxing skills, but he brings, determination to the ring. And I like that. He's a guy that comes to the ring and he leaves it all there. He leaves it in the ring, But from the last time we see him, the last time he stepped with Juan Manuel Marquez, he brought a lot to the table. I, though, had mentioned it was the teacher versus the professor. And I'm still going to go with that. It's the teacher versus the professor, but it's more the kindergarten kid going against the university professor, okay, where, at one time, I considered Juan the Baby Bull a high schooler, okay, a guy that was ready, almost close to graduating, maybe had 2 more years, okay, was a junior or a senior. But now, seeing what happened with Paulie Malignaggi, we've seen him decline, okay. I don't see the same Diaz at all. I really see a worn out Diaz, a guy that's been a little bit too many wars, a guy that really honestly, I think we saw the best of him maybe 2-3 years ago, a guy that's a solid contender, but really honestly is getting in there with a guy that's still very crafty, where Floyd Mayweather did not give him a beating. He just outschooled him, made him look foolish when Marquez stepped in with Pretty Boy. And but we still got a very determined, fresh, older professor that still got a lot of tricks in the bag. Now, yeah, did Juan the Baby Bull Diaz back him up against the ropes? Did he push him? Was he able to get on top of him? Of course. But then we saw what happened when Marquez adjusted to Juan the Baby Bull Diaz. Diaz has honestly got to do something completely different. He's got to make Marquez come to him. He's got to make Marquez become the pressure. That's the way to beat Marquez. Watch Floyd Mayweather. Floyd allowed Marquez to go first. Let him be first and then counter. Because the counter puncher never knows how to have a rhythm when he decides to lead first. That's what Juan the Baby Bull Diaz has got to do. But his nature will not allow him to do that. The warrior inside of Diaz will not allow him to do that. So he's going to make the same mistakes again. He's going to go forward. He's going to have his moments. And then you're going to probably see an earlier night with Marquez being the victor over Juan the Baby Diaz on a TKO or possibly a KO, and that's going to be the ending of that kid's career. And and you're going to have to applaud Juan the Baby Diaz because, in all honesty, we had him on the radio show, and he said it. I didn't need this fight. I didn't need to take this fight. I could have took 2 lesser fighters, and then build myself back up. But he decided to say, you know what? I'm gonna get back in there because that's the true warrior that I am, and I'm gonna do what my fans want me to do, which is get in there and throw blows. But unfortunately, the one that's gonna be throwing a little bit more intelligent blows is gonna be Juan Manuel Marquez. So I got him by mid TKO. Anyways, I'm your host Dave. Join us. This was another edition of The Will Be Blood.